Good morning. As we get set up, as we're very used to at this point, just tune in if you're joining me today. Thank you very much for coming along. Just checking the technology, and we will be with you very, very soon. Alrighty. If you're tuning in, if you can hear me this morning, thank you. Today we're going to be talking about how to start a business on this fourth LinkedIn Live for 2020. And if you have any ideas for LinkedIn Lives in the future, please pop them in the comments below. Just popping up here so I can see the comments. And if you're joining me today, say good day, where are you from? If you're thinking about starting a business or if you run a business for yourself, I'd love to know your questions. Pop them in the comments. I'd love to know your tips also. We're also considering for next week, if not the week after, I finally figured out how to do a co-hosted LinkedIn Live so we can have multiple screens up at once and bring in callers or bring in other participants and have multiple people going. So if you've ever seen Tea Time with Gary Vee, it's like a YouTube show that's out right now. Very, very cool. We figured out how to do that. So excited to do that from next week. But if you're with me today for this episode of the LinkedIn Live talking about how to start a business, I'd love for you to say hello, jump in the comments, just let us know you're here. And let's get straight into it while we start to get some people starting up. So some of the things I want to show you today, I'm going to run through a whole bunch of different topics, a whole bunch of different things that really helped me at the start. And these are tools largely that are all free and available. And if you saw my post from last night, the Trello board, the 10-40-10 formula of different questions to ask yourself at the start of the week, and particularly those 40 in the middle around marketing, around finance, around innovation, around customer relationships. We're going to talk about some of those things today. So I want to share with you some of the original frameworks that I used when I started Campus Consultancy. So this was an idea in the shower, August 2017, and where it started was the first thing I want to talk about today, and it's all about empathy. To start a business, the number one question you want to know the answer to is who is the person I want to help and what problem do they have? When I lecture at the University of Melbourne, when we run these courses privately, we always say a real person with a real problem. Real person, real problem. That's where you want to start. Now, a great tool to do that and a great tool to explore that is something called a value proposition canvas. So what I have here, this is my, I don't know if you can see that. This is my original value proposition canvas. And I've got a blank one here. So it's a tool from a group called Strategizer, strategizer.com. So you can jump online and check that out. And what Value Proposition Canvas has, and all my scribbles when Campus Consultancy was still an idea, was that it serves a couple of things. One, Value Proposition Canvas. So the canvas part is the fact that it's a piece of paper. You want to get it out of your head onto the piece of paper, just to start with. The second thing, the value proposition, is in value proposition, it talks about the value that you can give to somebody. Now, all of us are driven by pain and pleasure. We want to get more pleasure in our life, reduce pain. So if you're starting a business and you're looking for someone out there to help, or a customer segment, which we'll talk about in a second, you want to find someone who's experiencing some sort of discomfort, some sort of risk, some sort of fear, worry, concern, because they're the sort of person who might want to engage with you if and only if you can add value to them and propose it in a way that they can understand and hear about. We'll cover all of this today. So as we go forward, we're going to start with Value Proposition Canvas and the thinking behind that. Empathy first, empathy before innovation. Lots of people have an idea. The founder of Atari said it's not the person in the shower who has an idea, it's the person who gets out, dries themselves off, and does something about it. But the idea is not important, especially in 2020 with everything that's happening with COVID. It's not your idea. It's do you love the people you serve? My business totally changed overnight from 100% online, in-person delivery to 100% online delivery. Why? Because COVID-19 does not have permission to stop my mission. Nothing out there has permission to stop what I'm trying to do. And that is to serve student leaders at universities and help them become the leaders that the world needs tomorrow. That's what I'm about. Now, if I'm online, fantastic. If I'm in person, fantastic. If I write a book, fantastic. If I'm doing LinkedIn Lives, fantastic. If we have coffee chats, fantastic. If I make tools, canvases, things like that, fantastic. The how doesn't matter. It's the why. And at a TED Talk last year, I shared a quote from Nietzsche. This is ancient wisdom, that a man who has a why can bear almost anyhow. There's biblical wisdom, but without a vision, the people will perish. We need a why. And that why comes from a real person with a real problem. And some of the tools we'll talk about today are, if you're starting a business, find someone right now in the community who's suffering from something. Okay, they struggle to study when they're at home. How can you help them with that? They're lonely when they're at home. How can you help them with that? They're not eating very well. How do you help them with that? Maybe you make a sensor that goes on the fridge that counts the amount of times the fridge door opens. The how isn't as important. It's finding a real person with a real problem. Now, thank you for everyone who's jumping on and joining me today. Stacey, hello, hello, hello. Lovely to see you again. Morgan, you are consistent. The thing I love about Morgan, you are so consistent. I love that you're tuning in and making this a part of your week. I really appreciate it. There's lots of things I love about you, Morgan, but that's one of them. Cheetah, I'm well. Lizzie, I'm well. Lizzie, I'm still out of your coffee cup. Also, if anyone's seeing this right now, I want you to go into the comments and click on Lizzie Tonway. Lizzie made this amazing coffee cup. It's my favorite coffee cup. I drink out of it every day. She made it from scratch. So if you're in the business of supporting local businesses, and Lizzie's a student herself at Federation Uni, check out Lizzie, send her a message, ask her for one of these cups. They're absolutely amazing, absolutely beautiful. So thanks, Lizzie, for joining us. Abhishek, great to see you again. Nick, hello, hello, my friend. Great to have you tuning in. Ajamand, I love it. Dave, welcome. Students, if you're out there, if you're watching this right now, if you're a student club leader or if you're at a university and you're involved in student engagement, I want you to click on Dave's profile and check out Get. What's happening with Get, super cool idea, and it's exactly what we're talking about today. Students struggle with a couple of things having run student clubs. One is getting people to sign up to events, free or paid. The other one is membership, is merchandise. If you check out Get, they've got a great technology to help you do that. Now, when we're talking about building a business, yeah, you need to start real person with a real problem. And I want to give you a bit of the punchline. There are ultimately two ways you can help somebody. Yeah, you want to reduce pain, and yeah, you want to increase pleasure, but you can deliver products or services. Products or services. So as a student club, the products you sell might be a book, a cup, a t-shirt, a framework, a piece of paper. They're all products. A service is something like this. You're not physically touching this LinkedIn Live, but hopefully it's valuable. And if you tune in for a few minutes today, and we'll be live until 11:30. So if you're tuning in for 25 minutes, you've got some time, get a coffee, get comfortable, ask some questions, take some notes, check out some of these frameworks, check out Lizzie, check out Get, jump on board. But that's a service, products and services. So before we want to deal with what products and services we make, there's a great book called Unicorn Tears by an Aussie author named Jamie Pride. And he says in that book, the number one reason Australian startups and businesses fail is they create products and services that nobody wants. If you've ever read The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, we'll talk about that soon as well. He had this whole story of putting so much time and money and energy into building something that nobody wanted. So rather than put all our time into something that's wasted, we want to find things that aren't that far removed from our reality. We want to find a real person with a real problem, empathize with them, clarify what they want, and then use some of these tools to get our message out to them. So we'll keep working through it. I would love that you're joining me. Thank you very much. If you have questions, things that you want to know, like what's the first thing to do to start a business? What's hard about starting a business? This is my business. What should I do next? If you want any ideas or questions, pop them in there, and then hopefully we can make this as valuable for you. I can speak directly to you as far as through the camera and reading your words, but if you have something, I'd love to know. So, starting with empathy. So one of the tools, Value Proposition Canvas, what it says is you first want to find a segment of students. I'm so used to talking to students. A segment of customers. Now think of this right now as any group of people anywhere in the world. And what you want to create is either, there's some different names for it, but either an ideal customer profile, a customer archetype, an ideal customer or ideal user. And what you want to do is, this process done really well is empathy. Poorly, it's stereotyping. But in empathy, you want to ask yourself through a tool called empathy mapping, what that person does, what that person thinks, what they feel, and then even more importantly, what do they want in life? What are their goals or ambitions? And what are their pain points? What's holding them back? What's restricting them from getting what they want? So right now we use a really common example. So you've got, in Australia, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the news right now, and as there always is, because these students are amazing, we have hundreds of thousands of international students. And I think, if I'm correct, if you take into account high schools and different sectors, altogether, I think there's over 1 million international students in Australia. Someone can correct me in the comments if that's off. But there's a lot of international students, right? Now, one of the struggles with international students, and there's a lot, as we all have lots of struggles in our life, one of them is employment and work. So throughout the semester, when you're actually in semester or trimester, work's limited to 20 hours. You might have seen it in the news recently that some of these limits have been lifted for nurses and working in grocery stores and stuff like that because of COVID. So when we're working with international students, we use the data that says, where do international students struggle? And there was a great report put out publicly by Practera a couple of years ago that said some of the areas international students self-identified that they were struggling in was in communication and teamwork and problem solving. One of them was time management too. And when you look at things that employers want, some of the top skills they want are teamwork, communication, problem solving, time management, initiative and enterprise. And so when you can map up for someone, oh, the thing you're struggling with are these particular skills, not all, but some on large, these were the biggest issues self-reported, and the things employers want are these skills. This isn't something that's wrong with you, this is just a skill gap you currently have, or may have. Now, if you know that's a problem, if we go super micro, say we look at international students right now, and they're wanting to get a job, and even if they get to the interview, they think they're going to struggle with a particular area of that interview, say it's teamwork, or say because they don't have experience yet, or volunteering yet, and obviously this is true for domestic students as well. If you know there's a group of people out there looking for jobs, and they don't have enough experience working in a team, and that's the problem you want to solve, that's a great point to go into the second step. And in the second step, when you start innovating and you start thinking, what can I do to add value? What can I do to solve that problem? You start to come up with new products, new services, and new ideas. So in this example, say you're looking at international students who are struggling with particular skills. If you came in and said, okay, we need something that can help international students get experience, even though that might not be on-the-job experience, what can that be? Now, if you're in a high school or if you're in a university, this could be a million things. It could be a mentoring program. It could be a volunteering program. It could be through something like Volley, which is an amazing organization. It could be getting involved in clubs and societies. It can be involved in being an ambassador for the university. And all of these new initiatives, if they provide value to the user or value to the student, they will get involved. Now let's take an example that's out in the community right now. People are struggling massively with managing their time, managing their priorities, living at home, not exercising. And so what do we see as a result of that? Well, we see apps like Uber Eats put a lot of time and energy and advertising into the grocery pickup service. We see a lot of people in the fitness industry start launching online courses, online programs, online initiatives, online communities. And we see a lot of people at home when they're struggling with time as well, start to run workshops on time management. So for us, we shared this morning from the 6th to 9th of April, just this week, I think I have 12 workshops, and I think 4 or 5 of them are all about time management. Because I went out to the universities who I work with, and who are partners and clients and customers, and I said, what are students struggling with right now? We went and helped do some of the research in some cases. And they said, students are struggling with time. So I said, okay, if I want to add value to you, and you want to engage students, and students are struggling with time management, then if I can run a workshop around time management, I help the students are the ones you want to engage, everybody wins. So it starts with that question of empathy and what do people want? Now I'm going to jump into some of the comments here. Nick correcting 1.25 million international students from overseas in Australia, so amazing. 750,000 Kiwis in Australia. Welcome to all the Kiwis as well. Cool. So loving some of the thoughts and ideas in here. I'd love to see any questions, any things I can help with directly. Great to see some of the introductions in the groups too. So the first step in all of this is empathy and innovation. But we don't want to stay there. We want to keep moving. So once you've figured out who you want to help, real person with a real problem, the next step is figuring out what you can do to actually solve that problem. So a second tool I want to share with you today is a canvas called the Business Model Canvas. So it kind of looks like this, Business Model Canvas. It's got 9 different pillars, and this is the original canvas that I wrote the sort of quote unquote business plan on for campus consultancy. This was it. And on the back, there's a very big brainstorm that I did with one of my best friends, Ryan, when I said, look, Ryan, look at this great thing I've done, like taking my homework to the teacher. And he said, that's well and good, let's flip it over and start coming up with ideas. Now, on the back of this, when I was originally focusing on where I wanted to help students, in inverted brackets, I've got here, what is your biggest problem? And the why underlined. And so we started going through this from our own experience. A great place to start if you're thinking about starting a business is what's called scratching your own itch. Find a business problem, find a life problem, they're all life problems. Find a life problem that you've experienced. Because if you've been through it, it's easy to empathize with yourself and your own experience as a starting point. And then once you can do that, you can really dig into the details of knowing what's going on behind the scenes, what are the root causes of the problem. So for some of these we were looking at student clubs at the time, and I was saying one of the problems is we don't know how to build strong relationships with the team. Another thing is motivation. Another thing is achieving goals. Something's around membership. How do you get sponsors? Something is around, do we have the right tools? What we affectionately call getting stuff done. How-to guides, agendas. And we made this big long list of things that students were struggling with. Now, after this point, we did something which is called customer interviewing, which is absolutely crucial. So in the value proposition canvas, in empathy mapping, when you want to figure out what are someone's problems and ambitions, and then ultimately what would solve that, a great tool is to go out and actually speak to people. So this is what's so hard, particularly when innovation entrepreneurship is taught within a university environment, because so much of it is you and your degree and you working on your laptop, or then you going out in your teams within a university and working in a small team. Stuff like this, if you want to, most businesses need multiple customers, and most businesses, I'd say nearly all of them, nearly 100% of them, run off products and services they sell not just to their friends. So therefore, you need to meet people outside of your immediate group. And ideally, if you've done the customer segmentation, customer discovery, right, you will have a bit of an archetype of who is it that is the right user or customer for your product or service. The next step is to go out and speak to them. So in the Lean Startup, one of the things that Eric Ries talks about is at the same time you're trying to come up with a product or a service, you're also trying to identify and clarify who is your customer. So when you go out and speak to people, in my case with campus consultancy, I wanted to help university student leaders. Where did I start? Student clubs. Okay, I need to go out and speak to student club leaders. So what I did was I got on LinkedIn and I added hundreds of them across the country. I typed in president, like student club president, went through, found people at lots of different universities, because I knew that this product was designed, the service was designed to help student clubs in all of these different areas. So I wanted to figure out, do we have the same problems in WA as we do in UNSW in Sydney, as we have at UQ up in Brisbane, as we have up at JCU up north, as we have at Fed Uni in Victoria? Do we have the same issues? And so I went out and I sat down with them and I literally got on a phone call and I essentially asked two questions. The first question was, what do you want to achieve this year? The second question is, what's stopping you achieving that? And I used a technique called the 5 whys, where basically you say, what's stopping you, what's holding you back, why is that, why is that, why is that, why is that? And you want to get to the root cause of the problem. And as I dug and dug and dug, when I got to the end of all of those phone calls, and I was like taking notes in the background, I write out the 3, 4, 5 areas that students said they were struggling with the most. And as I did literally hundreds of these calls, I put together all that data and started to look for trends. Once I found trends, I had 5 or 6 areas that I realized people were struggling with across the board. They're struggling with how to sign up new members, just like all businesses struggle to sign up new customers. They're struggling with how to motivate a team and stay motivated themselves, as almost all teams struggle with. They struggle with partnerships, sponsorships, stakeholder engagement, as many businesses struggle with. They struggle with setting goals and achieving them, writing strategies and action plans, as almost all businesses struggle with. And so as I went through that, I realized there were these common areas. Now this is where it got kind of interesting. In the starting a business idea, yeah, you want to understand what that customer needs, but you've also got to marry that with what's realistic in what you can provide. So for me, I'd been a student club leader, we'd had a level of success there, but I'd also gone off and been an engineer and traveled and worked with people all over the world. I knew I loved communicating. I'd worked in recruitment for a year and a half and knew that there was a value proposition there of bringing that employability knowledge, but I also knew that I had some unique approaches to dealing with problems. So what I was able to do was take 2 or 3 things that I had unique experience in, put them together, and then with that I said, what is my unfair advantage? What am I uniquely positioned to do, to offer, to deliver that I wish I had when I was in that situation? So the key with scratch your own itch problems is you're first trying to understand the root cause of the problem and then saying, what's the thing that I wish I had that would have solved that problem for me? Because if you can solve that problem for one person, you can probably solve it for many. Now, as we continue, just going to jump into the comments and see if there are any kind of questions popping up here. Nishay has asked, are there any good books you would suggest on entrepreneurship? Definitely. Number 1, I would read The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Number 1, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, that's a gem. Number 2, I'd recommend by an Aussie author, a book called Chapter 1 by Daniel Flynn of Thank You. Now, the thing I love about Chapter 1 is You've probably seen thank you or thank you water, or thank you soap, thank you hand sanitizer now, the products in the stores. He gives a run through of everything that they did launching that business, especially because it's a social enterprise. It's really, really unique. I definitely recommend that. There's some really good ones out there. The E-Myth Revisited. If you type top business books, top entrepreneurship books into Google or Amazon, you'll find a whole bunch. But honestly, for me, the Lean Startup was like the Bible. And when I've taught this at a couple of universities since, I try to get a copy of that either on lease to pass around the class or a copy for every student in the class. It's so, so valuable. So I'd start there. Nick Taylor saying to grad job or not to. So there's a common debate here of like, is this something that if you want to start a new business, is that the right thing for you right now? Or should you go get experience in the industry? My buddy Ryan, who I was talking about, that we worked on some of these ideas together in the early stages, Ryan works for an enormous company, he's worked for a few, has great experience. And I started a business. And so like we have different career paths, but how do you know whose is better? Everything I'm doing here is trying to optimize for happiness, joy, having the best quality, possible quality of life. So if you think that some learning and development is a great place to go in the grad market, you'll be surrounded by brilliant people, that's a great place to go. If though you have something, and I like this, I steal this from Tim Ferriss, also someone great to check out in the entrepreneurship world, if it's harder to not start a business than to start it, that's the only time you should start it. If it's harder to not start it than it is to start it, that's when you should start it. So if this thing's top of mind, if it needs to get out, if you're talking about it all the time, you're obsessed with this problem, you have some idea of how you might solve it, that's a great time to say, okay, I'm going to give this thing a shot. But there's something where you don't really care, you don't really want to talk to anyone about it, you'd like it to already be earning you money while you sleep, but you kind of don't want to skip a few steps before you get there. I've just never seen that happen ever. My experience, especially in the first couple of years, it's always more work, less money, more risk, more uncertainty. And so if that sounds like a horrible time, maybe starting a business is not the right place. But if you're not scared of a little bit of hard work and you fall in love with that customer archetype, you know there's a real person, you want to help them, starting a business is a really powerful and a really life-changing thing to do if you give it a shot. Now I'll say that too. Amanda's saying, hey Josh, when you first started Campus, did you build your profile through credibility, writing blogs, posting on LinkedIn? Yep. And what's your advice? I always find myself puzzling whether I should establish my credibility first or jump in. Great. So this idea about credibility, coming to the idea of confidence too, and Nick, you're welcome, is one of the things I had to learn, because I sat on this for a while, if I wasn't willing to do things before I was confident, I'd never do anything. So I always use the analogy in workshops of imagine when you wake up in the morning and your alarm goes off and you promise yourself you're going to exercise, and then when your alarm goes off and it's cold and raining outside, the last thing you want to do is get out of bed and exercise. The problem is you have low energy at the start, and then you use energy, and then after the exercise you have more energy. Explain that. So with confidence it works the exact same way. You don't get confidence and then do something. You get confidence after you do something. And it's by doing it again and again and again and again and again that leads to it. So for myself, Amanda, when I was asking myself about what business should I start, well, I just worked with this amazing nonprofit for 1.5 years, and part of my job was giving a lot of public talks and running workshops. And I realized like, oh, that's a thing that I really like to do. I did my first 50 workshops with an iPad in front of me with notes, even though it was basically the exact same talk, and I only went for like half an hour. I did it 50 times with notes before I ever gave a talk without notes. And that's because my hand was kind of forced there. And so with that, I just like did it, and then I got confident. So when it started starting a business, I was like, okay, this is something that I could start on the basis of this skill set I've developed running all of these workshops and talks for the last couple of years. So when it comes to putting information out, again, it's all about adding value. So when you get into this next step around, okay, you found someone with a real problem, and this is a long process, we're just giving you the highlight reel, real person with a real problem, then you go into that lean startup-y kind of world of, all right, let's try to think of some things that could solve it. Now, a problem well defined is a problem half solved, so the more people you speak, the clearer the idea will be. And that next step, it's while you're coming up with ideas, I was putting out content about Campus well before I had the run sheet for the day. And when I spoke to all these student leaders, I came to 5 or 6 different areas that they were struggling with. And so what I started to do, Amanda, to go directly at your question, I started talking in public about those ideas. So I said, okay, you're struggling to sign up members. Here are some ways you could sign up members. Here's what to do at O Week. Here's what to do in the middle of the semester. Here's what to do in exam period. And I started putting that stuff out on LinkedIn. And what I was testing there was, 1, the value hypothesis. Does this solve the problem? And students kept writing me messages saying, hey, we did what you did and we tripled our membership. Hey, we did what you did and we quadrupled our sponsorship. And so it was working. I had problem, solution, fit. I could solve their problem. But more importantly, it also fit the growth hypothesis. People were telling their friends. They were passing it on. They were introducing me to staff members. They were saying, hey, what else can you do? And so the more I put out there, I got to actually test, do my ideas help, number one? And number two, do people tell other people about it? Do people come back and want more? Does it work? And it wasn't true all of the time, but it was true enough of the time that I said about 8 months, 10 months, something like that, 10 months after the idea in the shower, I'm going to leave my full-time job, I'm going to take the plunge, I'm going to give this a go. So that was definitely for me, of putting stuff out there. Now, there are lots of businesses out there who are made without any personal brand by the person who runs it. Heaps of them. Mine, for me, just happened to work because when I got further into this step, and I got into the third step around business model canvas, which we'll talk a little bit about now, we started talking about marketing. Now, Peter Drucker said every business has two legs, marketing and innovation. The first part we've talked about today is innovation, value proposition canvas, customer interview, empathy mapping. Empathize first, then innovate. Find the problems, come up with a solution. If your solution solves a problem, you've got problem, solution, fit. That's great, but that's all on innovation. You could have the best book ever written in the history of the world, and if it sits on your desktop and no one knows about it, it's no good. So if you're out there right now and you're a student or you're looking for a job, you can have the best resume in the world, best LinkedIn in the world, but if it sits there static, no one's going to find it. So just like every Starbucks wants new customers to come in, every university wants more students to sign up, every computer company wants people to buy more computers, if people don't find out about you, then they have no chance to buy something from you, even if you have a solution to their problem. So in the third step, what I realized was marketing was key, and I wanted to market in a year that we're kind of living in right now, which at the moment I thought LinkedIn was a platform. I saw huge growth. Everything I read said LinkedIn was a place to be. I knew that I wanted to be speaking to university staff. That's where they really hung out. So I just started putting out content on LinkedIn. Now, originally, I didn't do this to grow the business. Originally, when I was in recruitment, I started posting on LinkedIn because my value as a recruiter was I wanted to meet people at events, and then rather than send them lots of emails, which was like, do what I want, do what I want, do what I want, I wanted to say, here's a bunch of free value that will help you prepare and upskill for the interview. So I might meet someone in January, and then they apply for a job in April, but they've seen 30 posts from me in that time, all of which are trying to help them be the best applicant they can be. So it was just give. There was no sell. It was just helping them get a job. And so what I realized was people kept saying, oh, that was really helpful, or your post about the STAR method was really good, or how to prepare for an interview was really good, or your phone tips were really good. And so when I heard that, I was like, oh, okay, this works. And people seemed to be okay with me putting out all this content. So when it came to starting the business, in marketing, there are 3 levels that I really needed to learn about. They were awareness, consideration, and decision making, like marketing 101. In awareness, people can't buy your product or service if they don't know who you are. And try this for a week, sit at home and do no marketing and tell no one about what you do and see who markets for you. Because it's no one. And fortunately, because that's where the opportunity is, if you've got something to give, if you've got something to share, that's why people are so evangelical and so passionate about what they do. Why there are events like TED Talks and YouTube and TikTok and all these things that are popping up. People have something to say, they want to say it, they want to get it out. And so with marketing at an awareness level, no one can engage with you if they don't know who you are or what you're selling. They don't know what you have to give to the world. They don't know what value you can bring. They can't engage with you. So a lot of the content I put out will be about awareness. It's about getting people to say, hey, this is me. Like, if you want to buy a laptop, I can't help you. If you want to buy a coffee cup, I can't help you. But if you want to develop leadership skills, if you want to grow a student club, if you want to develop employability, I can help you with that. That's my area. And my trick there with awareness was I wouldn't even know if it's a trick, but it's just what I did. I just gave away everything for free. I said, this is what I've learned. Here are the books I've learned it from. There's nothing special about what I'm doing. I'm just consolidating hundreds and hundreds of hours of reading and research and putting it out. But I was willing to do that because I loved it. So at an awareness level, I just put out content that I wanted to be valuable. People would tag each other. That was seeming to work. On a consideration level, when people were looking at booking workshops, that's where you had to differentiate yourself. So for me at this point, in differentiation, this is when I said, what can I do that's different? And I said, well, I started as an engineer. I'm an engineer, I'm pretty confident public speaking, and I know a little bit about graduate employment. So I said, all right, and I was a club leader. So I was like, how many engineering club leaders worked in graduate recruitment and do public speaking? And I'm pretty sure I'm near the only one in the country. So with that, I started working a lot in the earlier days with engineering faculties. And I said, hey, I really understand this. I am an engineer, but I've also got these other skills which make me unique. And so what I was talking about was how engineering skills helps you build community and friendships and helps you get a job. And with that sort of stuff, that made me unique and different. Then as I got more experienced and now work with 26 universities, 8,500 students, what makes me different is I was a kind of a first mover in this area. So one of the big trips with starting a business, if you're into this, is I'd really look for something that's called a blue ocean. Look for an area or a category that doesn't exist yet. Look for a problem you've experienced in your life and think, there's no product there for me, no service for me. If there was, they didn't market it because it didn't get to me. So what could be something that I totally invent, create, open up, not necessarily as a product or a solution, but as an area or problem of life that you could deal with. So as a real world example for this, I traveled for 2 years. And over those 2 years, I experienced homesickness sometimes. And there are people all over the world who experience homesickness. And what products and services are there for homesickness? I don't know of any. And if I did, they didn't find their way to me. So if you innovate in that space of how do you help people not experience homesickness as much, it's a whole blue ocean. There's so much space there to innovate and create because you're tackling a problem that not many people are focused on. And so rather than competing with everyone else who's competing for the same thing, rather than, I saw lots of people trying to run leadership programs in high schools, lots of them fantastic. I was like, that's not my space. What's unique? What do I care about uniquely? Well, I really think university leaders are positioned to be the leaders of the future. And I didn't, through 10 volunteering roles, I got no training at university in how to be a student leader. So I thought, didn't find its way to me, probably isn't finding its way to others. That's where I'm going to go. And I'm going to make people aware of what I'm doing and the vision, and then I'm going to help them consider that I might have something valuable to add. And the third part of that marketing is around decision making. So you need to give people an opportunity to engage. At the start, this was one of the things I struggled with so much. Oh, and Amanda, you're welcome. My last note on this was like, I struggled with this so much. I felt so awkward saying, here's a thing you can actually pay for, would you like it? Even though I knew I had something that I think could really help, it felt so uncomfortable making that ask. And the reason I realized was I had a lot of self-doubt about like, who am I to say that I'm going to put a price tag on what I do? Who am I with no business experience, no business training, launching a business? Who am I doing something in a space that I have no formal qualification in? And then I realized was all that stuff's just in my head. And all the causes are in your head. And all the symptoms and everything you see in the world come out from there. And when I realized that, if I fix this little bit up first, if I fix up that self-doubt, if I fix up that idea of I'll do it when I'm confident, I'll do it when I'm motivated, I'll do it when I have energy, and go, no, I'm going to get confident, motivated, and energy by doing it. That was the thing that really helped me go. So from that point, I could put something out to the world. I could say, I believe in this, but crucially, I want your feedback. I want to know how to make this better. And unlike the linear pathway of so many things in life, especially in building business and delivering products and services, it's a circle. So why I always recommend a lean startup is you start with something, you start with an idea, you build something, you put it out into the world. And what you're testing there is what you're looking for is, will people engage with it? Does it work? Does it solve the problem? The second thing in the measure step of Eric Ries's Build, Measure, Learn, you're trying to get data and feedback, quantitative and qualitative. What do people like? How to make it better? Is it too short? Is it too long? In the third step, learn. In the learn step, you really want to know, okay, they've told me these things. What are the lessons I can take from that? Do I need to pivot it a little bit? Do I need to change it? How can I improve this product? But then crucially, you go back to the build step and launch again. Put it back out in the world. Now at this point, you can either change the product or change the customer segment or both. But at this point, you're constantly testing to figure out, am I delivering the right thing to the right person? Because if you've got a real person with a real problem, your value is if and only if you can help solve their problem or help them reach their goals. So I'm checking into a couple of comments here in the LinkedIn Live. Loving it in there from Amanda. Thanks, Fabrice. You're very welcome for the reference. The ask is a big one from Nick, definitely. So we've blitzed through half an hour today talking about how to start a business and a couple of tools. So if you want a couple of things to leave out from today, the first thing would be looking at Value Proposition Canvas. I really recommend checking that out. It's an amazing tool by Strategizer. The second tool is Business Model Canvas, also available online. You can learn all about that. The third is the book, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. I really recommend checking that out, getting into that. The fourth thing is try to find a problem you're experiencing or someone you know is experiencing. Can you find other people who are experiencing it and ask them, what's the pain points here? What are you struggling with? Why is this a problem? Why hasn't anyone solved it before? And the fifth step, when you come up with something or ask other people to collaborate on coming up with something, put it out in the world. If you have an idea, tell people about it. Ask for help. No one's stealing your idea. Nobody. If someone can steal your idea and execute it better than you, it's probably not a good idea. They would have stolen it anyway. So if you've got an idea, try to put it out in the world, see if people like it, and if people start saying, yeah, you should really do that, and that means you're onto something. So with that, thank you very much for tuning in today. If you have any more questions, pop them in the comments and I'll try to get back to them all. LinkedIn's algorithm is still really weird, so I can't send individual replies to the comments as we go, but hopefully we'll figure that out soon. From here, these were our first 4 LinkedIn Lives, so I'd love to know, what do you want to see next? So if you're listening right now, if you can do anything for today, whether it's in the comments or sending me a message, can you please let me know? Over the month of April, so today is the 6th, so we'll definitely have 3 more in April as a minimum. I'd love to know, what do you want to hear about? What is something that would be valuable to you? Is it time and productivity, which we've kind of touched on before? Is it energy? Is it business? Is it anything at all? Anything around leadership, whether it's Q&A, should we have guests on? Should I interview somebody cool from my network? Should we bring some students in? Should we co-create something together? What would be something that you would find valuable for this time if you're tuning in, if you're listening? What do you want to hear about? What do you want to learn about? What do you want to discuss? Is it books? Is it reviewing something? Is it public speaking? I'd absolutely love to know. So whether you pop it in the comments or send me a message, I'd really, really appreciate it. But more than anything, thank you for tuning in today. I hope you have an amazing day. I'd love to know what you're up to. And if you go out there, if you're starting a business or running a business or launching a business, I'd love to know specifically, what's that next step? What are you doing this week? How are you improving your product? How are you speaking to more customers? How are you marketing in creative and original ways? What platforms are you experimenting with? Are you on TikTok yet? Are you doing ads on Instagram stories? Where are you? What are you playing with? And with that, I hope you have an amazing day. Thanks for tuning in. And this has been How to Start a Business with me, Josh Farr, on LinkedIn Live. See you later.